let's talk about transition. So, the topic for today, give me a sec, I'll read it. The topic is talk about transition. Do you want to? What kind of progress have you made? How has the process affected your day-to-day life? Do you feel your transition is complete? Damn, that's a lot of things. So, I think I started transitioning the moment I came out as trans. Actually, no, I started transitioning that moment I learned the word transgender. Because for transitioning for me is not just medical transition. It's not just coming out to people. My transition has been, it's really been starting from things that are part of my foundation, like thinking about gender, being critical of the way that I've been perceiving gender, the way that I've been allowing myself to express my gender. And I think it started in such like rooted parts, like things that are just so part of my foundation. And so my transition is ongoing. I definitely, so I think I'm going to break up this topic of transition into different things of medical transition, and then also just like my own personal transition things, and then just like general, I'm going to see. I'm not really sure how I'm going to break this up besides medical transition, but in my previous video, I did mention that I have been on testosterone for, it'll be 3 years this year. Getting on hormones was complicated. And I have to say that my experiences with getting access to hormones, getting access to a doctor first that would be able to prescribe me with hormones was very, very privileged. Like, my experience was very privileged. It wasn't great, but also I am definitely on the better end of the spectrum of stories with regards to getting access to a doctor. I was able to get a family doctor at a community health center, and the community health center was just starting out with their trans-specific program and thinking about trans healthcare. And so I was one of 10 patients who were trans that my doctor had, and they had calls with like Sherborne Health Care, because I was in Ontario. My doctor was in Cambridge, and I think so I was very blessed in that situation. So getting on hormones, the frustrating parts of it was I had been thinking about getting on hormones, knew the risks, knew what I wanted, knew all those things. And then by the time I was able to sit down with a doctor, I was at the point where I was like ready for them to give me that prescription just to go through a consent model of having access to hormones. But that's not the model they used at the community health center. And so it was frustrating just like having those extra couple months. And I think through that process, that really had a negative impact on my mental health. It had a negative impact on just my general like well-being and where I was in my greater transition. Asking, I think when you sit down and talk to professionals and they ask you the questions that you already know your answers to, but then they make you think about it again, it instills this level of doubt. And I went through a period of definitely second-guessing myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if this professional knows me better than me? And I had to realize and remember that no, they could never know me better than me. They could never know my story better than myself. They could never know who I am better than I know myself. And so who are they to instill this doubt in me? But then again, for myself to be to be able to have an experience like that with a professional and have that doubt instilled in me, and then also have the security to sit down with myself and be like, fuck them. That also speaks to, in my greater life, having people that supported me, having spaces that were safe for me, having stability in my life and security in, like, I knew where I was going to live. I knew that I was going to have food. I knew I was going to be able to still have friends and have people that cared for me and have things that I'm passionate about and be working on those things. So I think even throughout my process of transitioning, I have consistently had a level of security, and I think I worked really hard to get to that point before coming out as trans, and worked really hard on, like, learning about myself and learning about the people surrounding me before I came out as trans, and I know that is a very, like, fortunate experience that I had. Yeah, so got on hormones, all, the regular stuff,